Hey everyone, this is Gregg Schutze for Ready for the Draft.com, and this is episode 3 of the Ready for the Draft podcast. College football fans, the wait is over. College football season is here. On Saturday, we've got 2 matchups, Florida and Miami, Arizona and Hawaii, kicking things off for the college football season before we get the full slate of games next weekend. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to this ever since the football season ended. We had the draft season, and once the draft ended, enjoyed our summers, and now we can get back to college football. And I promise you, each and every week, we will take a look at the matchups, and we'll take a look at the previous week, break down each of the games, the guys that you really want to be paying attention to for the 2020 draft. We're going to take a look at all of those matchups. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this Miami-Florida matchup on August 24th, this Saturday. So this is going to be obviously a big game. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida, so at a neutral site. And I'll tell you, this is really a matchup, obviously in-state rivals. I'm really looking forward to seeing the matchup between the Florida offense and the Miami Hurricane defense. I know the turnover chain, Manny Diaz. It's really going to be interesting to see what Miami brings to the table there on defense. But if you take a look at Florida, you've got Felipe Franks at quarterback. And Felipe Franks is one of those quarterbacks he had an up and down season, I thought a season ago. He's a big kid, 6'6", 227 pounds. He's going to be a junior in 2019, so he is actually eligible for the draft, but a 56.8% completion percentage. Last season, just over 2,400 yards passing. Did throw for 24 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions. Also got it done on the ground, 362 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. But again, the inaccuracy at times, the decision making, those are going to be issues that he's going to run into. And really with Felipe Franks there at quarterback, we're going to break down the receivers and the defensive backs for Miami here in a little bit. But he's got an offensive line in front of him that has to replace Jawan Taylor at right tackle, Martez Ivey at left tackle, and obviously, the guard as well on the right side, Fred Johnson. There's 4 offensive linemen in total that they have to replace. The only guy that's coming back is Nick Buchanan, who is a legitimate pro prospect, 6'3", 291 pounds. When you're replacing 4 starters on the offensive line, if that offensive line is able to produce a 1,000-yard rusher with LaMichael Pirine, who we'll talk about here in just a moment, if they're able to do that, if they're able to give Felipe Franks time, allow him to really sit back and the time in that pocket, that's going to speak something to Nick Buchanan's leadership. Really taking this young core of offensive linemen and really mold them into a better offensive line there in the SEC. They're going to go up against a lot of difficult front fours. And I'll tell you what, Miami has one of those front fours that they're really going to have to watch out for. They have Jonathan Garvin, who's going into his junior season at defensive end, 6'4", 256 pounds, coming off the edge. A season ago, 17 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups, excellent length, good bend coming around the edge. So those tackles really going to have to watch out for Garvin. Does a really good job setting his man up, can rush the passer on the inside as well. But I think the real key there up front is going to be Trevon Hill. 6'3", 245, the transfer from Virginia Tech. This is a guy who, against Old Dominion there at Virginia Tech, I think it was September 22nd, I want to say. So just over a year ago. Just under a year ago. He had an issue, an altercation, and ultimately was kicked off the team. But in 3 games with the Hokies, 4.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, had, in his career for the Hokies, 20 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, an interception, pass breakup, a couple of fumble recoveries as well. This is a guy who is very explosive coming off the edge. Has pretty good length as well, bends like nobody's business. This is a guy who can really bend the edge, can really turn the corner in a hurry. The fluidity in his hips, the ankle flexion, he's able to turn the corner and really, at a difficult angle coming around that edge. Reminds you a lot of Brian Burns with that ankle flexion, being able to really wreak havoc coming off the edge. He's going to be a tough matchup for those tackles there at Florida. Florida is going to be starting guys like Stone Forsythe and Gene DeLance there at left and right tackles. Now Forsythe, he's 6'7", 323, a junior, and he's no Martez Ivy. He's no Jawan Taylor. So they're going to be up against some pretty solid pass rushers. Not to mention, you got Pat Bethel there on the inside. When you've got a defensive tackle like Pat Bethel, a guy who can collapse the pocket from within, and also pretty stout against the run. This is a guy that I think is really going to cause problems for the interior of that line. He's going to be someone that Nick Buchanan is going to have to deal with. 6'3", 290 pounds. He's a guy that can get some penetration and cause some problems behind the line of scrimmage. Played in just 9 games, still have 5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks to go with 22 tackles. Pat Bethel, I think, is going to be one of those guys. You're going to talk about Trevon Hill. You're going to talk about the linebackers, as I'm going to be doing just now. But Pat Bethel is going to be one of those guys to watch out for. He's a senior, and I think he's primed for a big season. And if he does do that, he's going to be one of those sleepers that's going to start rising up some of those draft boards. Now, the linebackers. I mentioned the linebackers there for Miami. They're going to be keying in on Lamichael Pirine. Now, Lamichael Pirine, 5'11", 227-pound senior running back. And, Lamichael Pirine, here's the deal. He's no longer sharing the backfield. It's going to be him. He's going to be the bell cow. He's the one that's going to be running behind this offensive line. No more Jordan Scarlett. Jordan Scarlett's no longer there. He still rushed for 826 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's 6.2 yards per carry, 13 receptions out of the backfield while sharing those duties with Jordan Scarlett. I'm going to be interested to see what Lamichael Pirine's able to do. He has some power, has a burst to go with it, and the real question is going to be, what's that offensive line going to be like for him? If he does get out in space, he's very elusive in space, pretty good hands, does a good job following his blocks, good cutback ability, good vision. And, I think, he keeps those legs churning as well, just really keeps fighting for extra yards, a good goal line option, always fighting to get to the end zone as well. Pirine is going to be seeing that trio of linebackers all day long. One of my favorite linebackers in this entire draft class is going to be Shaq Quarterman. Shaq Quarterman, 6'1", 240 pounds, has started every game for the Hurricanes. That's 39 starts in his career. When you look at his numbers, 249 total tackles. He was second on the team in tackles in each of the last 3 seasons. So his sack totals, 11 sacks, 8 pass breakups. This is a guy, he's a really good blitzer. He's a guy that's going to be looking to shoot those A-gaps, times his blitzes very well. He's a guy who could drop into coverage a little bit, has good instincts, reads the quarterback's eyes, has the athleticism to be able to play sideline to sideline, can get inside out, can set the edge, and force the running backs back inside. He's a thumper coming downhill, reminds you a little bit of Denzel Perryman in that respect. I like Shaq Quarterman. I think he's one of the more underrated linebackers because there's talk about everybody else. They're talking about Dylan Moses. They're talking about Patty Fisher. They're talking about all of these linebackers, Troy Dye, Isaiah Simmons, Kenneth Murray. A lot of underclassmen are getting a lot of love, but Shaq Quarterman is right up there. And he's somebody who's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You're going to have to key in and watch him there in the middle. If you're looking for a guy, the team captain, number 55, right there in the middle, Shaq Quarterman is going to be the guy to watch. Michael Pinckney on the outside, 6'1", 229 pounds. Now, Michael Pinckney is no slouch. third on the team in tackles each of the last 2 seasons. Another guy, he's had 38 starts under his belt, and just he's not a guy who's very flashy, but he's just a guy who's solid and gets the job done. He's going to be somebody who doesn't make a ton of mistakes, and he's going to be keying on Lamichael Pirine as well. That's going to be one of the things. Both he and Felipe Franks, I think both Shaq Quarterman and Michael Pinckney are going to be spying on Felipe Franks just a little bit. Now, Florida likes to run 3 wide receiver sets, so you'll see Van Jefferson, Tyree Cleveland, and Josh Hammond there in that passing attack. So we won't see quite as much of Zach McCloud, but Zach McCloud is no slouch. 6'2", 235 pounds. A guy who has 129 tackles in his career, 12.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. But really, when they're looking to go to that nickel package, Zach McCloud comes out of the game. So he's one of those guys that has the talent. He's just really overshadowed by Shaq Quarterman and Michael Pinckney. But Zach McCloud, another senior to keep an eye on. So Lamichael Pirine against the linebacker is going to be a real interesting matchup, especially with that new offensive line. I think that's where Miami really has the edge. Now, here's the deal. Let's flip it a little bit. Florida, I think, may have the edge there from the skill position receivers, especially at receiver. Van Jefferson, the transfer from Ole Miss, last season proved that he could be a vertical threat. 6'2", 197 pounds. A guy who can get vertical and is a playmaker there on the outside for the Gators. Trying to scroll through here to find some of his numbers. So let's see. In 2 seasons at Ole Miss, 91 receptions, just under 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then at Florida last season, played in 11 games, 35 receptions, 503 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Felipe Franks, that's going to be his go-to guy. The son of San Diego Charger, great wide receiver, Sean Jefferson. I think Van Jefferson's going to be that guy on the outside. He has excellent size. He's going to be the guy that's going to match up probably with Miami's top corner, and that's Trajan Bandy. 5'9", 188 pounds, undersized corner, but a guy who has really good ball skills. He's someone who I think does a really good job attacking the ball when it's in the air. Really a gutsy, gaming performer. 8 pass breakups a season ago to go along with 3 interceptions as a sophomore. He's a junior now, and he's really going to be the guy that's going to be leading that secondary going up against these receivers. Tyree Cleveland, also a senior. This is a kid who a season ago, if I can find him, let's see, there are his stats, just 18 receptions, 212 yards, and 3 touchdowns. But he was the third leading receiver in terms of receptions, 4th in yards on the team. And it's one of those things. A season ago, they weren't really a passing team. They really wanted to look to run the football. I mean, between Pirine, Scarlett, and Franks, the top 3 rushers, you're looking at well over 300 carries for, let's see, 1,900 yards versus the 2,400 yards passing that Felipe Franks had. So no eye-popping numbers, but, make no mistake, Tyree Cleveland is a guy who can stretch defenses a little bit. 6'2", 206, and then Josh Hammond, 6 foot, 194 pounds. Josh Hammond is going to be no slouch either there on the outside. And they'll be going up against, again, not only Trajan Bandy, but who's going to be the most experienced of the guys there on the back end. They do have Al Blades, played in a little bit of, had a little bit of time, just 13 tackles and a tackle for loss. He's only a sophomore on the year. And then the safeties, Amari Carter is a junior, Bubba Bolden, transfer from USC, a former 5-star recruit. Didn't really see much time there with the Trojans outside of the special teams. So that's really going to be something that you're going to have to watch out for, because they're losing, the veteran presence there in the secondary. No Jaquan Johnson, no Sheldrick Redwine at safety, no Michael Jackson at corner. Those are 3 big names that you have there at the safety position, or safety and cornerback position, that we don't have anymore at the U. So you're going to have a lot of new guys that are coming in. So because of that, I think that's where Felipe Franks has an opportunity to take advantage of that inexperience in the secondary if that offensive line can hold up against that pass rush. And that front seven is going to be wreaking havoc all day long against the Gators. But if they can hold up just enough, allow Felipe Franks to make some plays down the football field, there will be plays to be had, especially outside the numbers. That's going to be really the game that I'm going to be watching for. I think that's what makes it so intriguing is this new offensive line. Are they going to be able to give him Felipe Franks enough time? Is Felipe Franks going to be able to make enough plays? That's really what I want to watch, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, the flip side, Miami, when they're on offense, you're going to have Jaron Williams. And if you're looking at his stat line from a season ago, 1 of 3 for 17 yards. But he beat out N'Kosi Perry and the transfer from Ohio State, Tate Martell. So, what does Miami's offense look like now? Travis Homer, the leading rusher the last 3 seasons, 985 yards rushing a season ago. He's gone. DJ Dallas is going to be the guy. 109 carries, 617 yards, 6 touchdowns, another 10 receptions out of the backfield. And, DJ Dallas, he's a junior, 5'10", 220 pounds. And, Homer was a guy who wanted to be a little elusive. DJ Dallas is going to run through you and also run around you. So it'll be interesting to really watch what DJ Dallas can do there in the backfield for the Miami Hurricanes. When you look at this offensive line, this is another team, offensive line-wise, it's going to be questionable. I think that's one of the things that Miami is really going to have to watch out for is their offensive line play. Specifically, you look at who do we have coming back? We have DJ Scaife Jr., the left tackle, 6'3", 300 pounds. He's only a sophomore. I think if you're talking about pro prospects, Devon Donaldson, sitting there at the left guard position, 6'5", 340 pounds, a big mammoth man there on the interior of the line, only a junior. But he's the guy that I'm really going to be watching for. But in terms of the veteran presence, you're really lacking some of that veteran presence up front for this team, this roster. So it's really going to be interesting to see. You've got a quarterback who's relatively inexperienced in Jaron Williams playing behind this offensive line. And you've got DJ Dallas really, I think, is going to see a lot of carries coming out of the backfield. I think he's going to be early dose of him early and often. He's going to be a guy that's really going to be pounding the rock quite a bit. You have former 5-star Lorenzo Lingard and Robert Burns coming out of the backfield. Cameron Harris had a really good spring from what I hear. Lingard missed the spring recovering from knee surgery. So DJ Dallas is going to be that guy coming out of the backfield. So Hurricane fans, be ready to see what your running back can do early and often. Now, I'll tell you, these two defenses, it's really going to be interesting because up front, defensive end, Jabari Zuniga, 6'4", 257 pounds, the senior, really going to be asked to take charge of this defense. And Zuniga, I thought that he was the most consistent defensive lineman. Yes, he already had the likes of Ja'Kai Polite playing there, but he and CC Jefferson were the starters, and Ja'Kai Polite had to come off the bench. Zuniga would kick inside and rush the passer as an interior lineman, allowing Polite to come off the edge. But Zuniga, very consistent performer, 27.5 tackles for loss in his career, 15.5 sacks, including a career high 6.5 a season ago. A guy who can set the edge against the run. I think he does a really good job there as well. He's going to be the leader of that defense. Let's not not get that twisted at all. He's someone I think very disruptive against the run, shoots gaps, gets into the backfield, manhandles defensive tackles off the snap because of that speed, plays with really good leverage as well against the offensive tackles, does a good job driving into that pad level and then able to get off of them, disengage and get to the quarterback. Not the most explosive guy coming off the edge, but a guy who can definitely get after the quarterback. At defensive tackle, you got Adam Schuler. He was a transfer from West Virginia, played for the Gators a season ago. 6'4", 275 pounds. He's someone who I really liked what he did when he was at West Virginia. A guy who played with a little bit of attitude, a little bit of a mean streak at times. Went over to Florida, 39 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. He's someone I think really needs to step his game up. I'm waiting for him to really have a breakout season. I'm expecting to see that in his first season with the Gators. Didn't really see that because I was wanting to see what he can build upon after leaving West Virginia. But at linebacker, they get a transfer that comes in, and Jonathan Greenard, 6'4", 263 pounds, out of Louisville, coming over. This is a guy who I really enjoyed watching in 2017 there at Louisville. 48 tackles, but 15.5 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. So when you talk about guys coming off the edge, if you're running, a defense that's a 3-3-5, Jonathan Greenard coming off the edge, really rushing that quarterback. He can be a down lineman if you need him to as well, but I think he's going to be that rush linebacker that is going to take the place of Ja'Kai Polite. And so he's going to really test those offensive tackles there for Miami, quite a bit coming off the edge. Then there's David Reese, the second. David Reese is a guy who, he's battled injuries. We talked about him last week. But a guy, the second leading tackler to Fasan Joseph with 81 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss. A guy who has battled through injuries, needs to stay healthy. That's really the biggest thing. If there was anything for David Reese, it's just please, hopefully you have a season where you can stay completely healthy, really show everyone what you can do, because he played with Fasan Joseph, and I thought, Joseph made a lot of splash plays, but I thought, Reese was more consistent. 102 tackles in 2017. That's really where he was able to show what he could do at the linebacker position. And, going down, battling some of those injuries, he's going to have to show everyone that he's all the way back. I don't think he was, what we saw in 2018. Yes, he battled back, but I don't think that was the best that we've seen. If he can be completely healthy, I think he can return to that 2017 form. Does a really good job playing against the run, plugs holes, excellent in the open field, has speed to the perimeter against the run. Against Vanderbilt, going up against an elite running back like Keyshawn Vaughn, didn't wrap up in the hole, ultimately allowed Vaughn to bounce it to the outside, just kind of dove at his feet. But a really good job, has a really high motor, chasing running backs down from behind, blitzing off the edge to pressure the quarterback as well, can drop into coverage a little bit. Against Duke, picked up the tight end on an in route, no separation. Quarterback still tried to fit it in. That's good old Daniel Jones. Got his inside arm in to knock the ball up. Popped up off the tight end, intercepted by Jaquan Johnson. So David, I'm sorry, not Jaquan Johnson. It was picked off by the safety there for Florida. But in any event, what you're looking at is a linebacker who, if he can be healthy, will be one of those underrated inside linebackers there for Florida. So that takes care of really kind of the front seven. So Miami, when you talk about their passing attack, what that's going to look like. Really, from a quarterback position, the quarterback play a season ago, with Perry and Malik Rozier, left a little bit to be desired. Just over 2,000 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Really kind of a shaky passing attack. And when you look at it, the leading receiver is back. That's Jeff Thomas, just 35 receptions, 563 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The leading touchdown maker for them a season ago was Lawrence Cager. He's gone. He's transferred to Georgia. So really the guy that's going to be a big area of focus will be Jeff Thomas. That 5'10", 170-pound junior, a vertical threat, a guy who has good speed, good route runner as well. But they get They lose Cager, but they get a guy like KJ Osborne. Really had a breakout season for the Buffalo Bulls a season ago when Anthony Johnson went down to injury. He and Tyree Jackson built some chemistry, and it was really a lot of fun to watch. 53 receptions, 892 yards for Osborne, 6 foot, 200 pounds, a guy who can play both on the outside, in the slot, a guy who can work the middle really well, runs good routes, can be a vertical threat for you, stretching the defense. And then, Mike Harley, 21 receptions a season ago, 240 yards, can be a weapon down the field as well. You have Brevin Jordan, the tight end, was the second leading receiver, at least in terms of receptions, 32 receptions, 287 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's back as well. So it's going to be interesting. He's only a sophomore, and I think Brevin Jordan's going to continue to get better and better for them. But that receiving, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the quarterback at the quarterback position. Will Jaron Williams be able to rise to the occasion? Are they going to bring in Tate Martell, have him run some wildcat and things like that, be a running quarterback, much like what they did at Ohio State? Or are they going to allow Tate Martell to really take the training wheels off and start cutting loose with the football? Be interesting. It remains to be seen. That front seven is going to wreak some havoc, but on the back end, here's where we get our first chance to really watch CJ Henderson. Now, CJ Henderson, if you haven't gotten to watch him, you'll be in for a treat. This is one of the nation's best corners. 6'1", 191 pounds, junior. A season ago, had 2 interceptions, 4 interceptions as a freshman, really burst onto the scene. So 6 interceptions in his career, 9 pass breakups, had 2 forced fumbles a season ago. This is a guy, 2 of his 4 interceptions in 2017 were returned for touchdown. A guy who just seems to continue to get better and better. Each and every game, each and every time that you see him, he has a chance to be, have all the postseason accolades. He's on the Thorpe Award watch list. Could be on some preseason All-American lists. Definitely a first-team All-SEC performer. I want to see what CJ Henderson can do against the likes of Jeff Thomas and KJ Osborne. Can he handle the speed? Want to see, if he does get beat, what type of recovery? Does he panic? Do the hands go up, or does he stay patient? Is he in phase? What does that look like? The route recognition. I really want to see him take his game to the next level, because if we're talking about first-round corners, we only have one quarterback drafted in the first round in the 2019 draft, and that was DeAndre Baker. And that guy, shut down quite a few SEC wide receivers, and he still was taken on the back half of round number 1. If CJ Henderson really wants to make his mark, he's going to have to step his game up even more, and this will be a good test, a good start going against some speed merchants like Jeff Thomas and KJ Osborne, who are also really good route runners. Now, beyond CJ Henderson, I think there's a little bit of some question marks. You got Marco Wilson, a sophomore, 6 foot, 180 pounds, and Trey Dean, a sophomore, 6'3", 194 pounds, playing the nickel. Really good size. That's really good size there in the secondary for the Gators. Trey Dean picked off 1 pass, returned it for 44 yards, has 5 pass breakups to his name as well. Marco Wilson, I think it's Marco Wilson that's going to end up starting there on the other side. If I can find him now, as I'm looking through my stats here. Marco, where'd you go, bud? 6 foot, 190 pounds. Probable. He had the torn knee. That's why I couldn't really find him. Torn knee in the first game. But as a true freshman, 34 tackles, 10 pass breakups, showed really good ball skills. Really had to have the medical red shirt in 2018, battling that ACL. Looks like he is going to make a season debut against Miami. So we'll get to see him come back. But again, how's that knee holding up? He's, a year layoff, and he's a young kid. He's a redshirt sophomore, which also makes him eligible for the draft. So, he'll at least be getting his name out there, and we'll get to see what Marco Wilson can do. At the safety position, though, Safeties are in good hands. Donovan Steiner, 6'1", 203-pound junior. Brad Stewart Jr., 6'1", 200. Also a junior. These safeties are guys who made all conference, SEC teams a season ago as sophomores. Steiner was the fourth leading tackler, 49 tackles, had a couple of picks and a pass breakup, also got to the quarterback once. Brad Stewart, 41 tackles to his credit, a couple of pass breakups, and had a couple of interceptions as well. A couple of guys that do a really good job. They're on the back end. Brad Stewart, he's someone who really flashed quite a bit. Donovan Steiner, really a reliable guy there on the back end. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is gone, so Steiner and Stewart are really going to be relied upon there on the back end. So it's going to be an interesting matchup when you put Florida and Miami together. You always know throughout the records these are two teams that don't really like each other, and they're going to be I think it's going to be a physical contest, and really it's going to be a defensive game. I don't expect a ton of touchdowns. We've got two offensive lines that, in my opinion, they're replacing a lot of starters. There's going to be some question marks up front, and the quarterback play, Felipe Franks a season ago, up and down play. Jaron Williams, not much experience behind center. We're going to see a lot of LaMichael Pirine and a lot of DJ Dallas, in my opinion, as well. It's going to be an interesting game, and if you're looking at it, trying to pick a winner, I think right now I'm looking at Florida. I like what they have there with their front seven, and really getting to Jaron Williams. That's really the question mark. I don't know what Jaron Williams is going to look like. I like the front seven there in Miami. I think there are more question marks in their secondary. I think there's a little bit that Florida can take advantage of. I don't think we're going to be seeing a ton of touchdowns scored in this game. It'll probably be like 19-13, something like that. And I think Florida will probably come away with the win. Although you can never count out a team led by Manny Diaz. That personality is just infectious. So it'll be kind of a fun one to watch. But we also have the late game, Arizona and Hawaii. So if you're tuning in and watching, you got Miami and Florida there on ESPN. Florida ranked number 8 in the nation, by the way. You got the late game on CBS Sports Network. That's Arizona at Hawaii. And you're going to have the matchup of two quarterbacks, dynamic quarterbacks. And I think that's really the thing that I'm going to be looking for when I tune in. I want to watch Khalil Tate take on Cole McDonald. Now, Khalil Tate, I think everybody knows who he is. 6'2", 215-pound senior. I mean, come on. Khalil Tate, one of the flashy quarterbacks in all of college football. Is he going to be a guy who's going to scream next level? Probably not. 56% completion percentage in his career, just over 4,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. But a tremendous athlete. He's got a heck of an arm. Rushed for over 1,400 yards in 2017 with 12 touchdowns. And the thing with it is his arm. He's somebody who makes it look easy, effortless, just a flick of the wrist, but the discipline. Can he play within the confines of an offense? Can he play, in the pocket, make plays there? Because even when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, I got on Patrick Mahomes, when I wrote about him coming out of Texas Tech, just the fact that a lot of it was street ball. And is that going to fit in the NFL? And really, Andy Reid was a genius, and he really took his offense and kind of made it work to Patrick Mahomes' strengths. Could a team in the NFL do that for Khalil Tate? I think it remains to be seen, but I really want to see what he can do when he's completely healthy. What can Khalil Tate do in a Kevin Sumlin offense when he's completely healthy? We saw what he did, a glimpse of that in 2017 as a sophomore. He completed 62% of his passes, just under 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, but 9 interceptions. I want to see if he can be, a guy that can take that leap. Is he an athlete who happens to play quarterback, or is he a quarterback who happens to be a great athlete? And that was one of the things for Dak Prescott. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. Dak Prescott as a junior was an athlete who happened to play quarterback. And that development from his junior to senior year. You saw him suddenly, he's seeing the defense, he's making better reads, he's, the zip out, out of his hand, the way that he's throwing the football, much more confident, much more control and command of the offense. And suddenly he turned into a guy who was a 4th-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys, and now he's talking about $40+ million a year. That's what he's trying to get from Dallas at this point. Can Khalil Tate be that guy? I really want to see what that development is going to be as a quarterback moving, taking that step as a senior. Now, Cole McDonald, on the other hand, this was a guy, really a virtual unknown coming in as a sophomore in 2018, earned the starting job, 59% passer, over 3,800 yards, 36 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, also rushed for 359 yards and another 4 touchdowns, to his credit. And Cole McDonald, this was a guy, tremendous athlete. I think that's one of the things that really jumps out when you watch him on tape. A guy who can get outside the pocket, and does a really good job, just the pocket presence as well. Does a really good job feeling defenses, able to step up, avoid the rush, extends plays really well. And I think that's really what's going to be so intriguing about this matchup. McDonald, 6'4", 205 pounds, and the guy who he burst onto the scene, honorable mention, all Mountain West Conference, 4 games with 300+ passing, 3 games with 400 yards or more, 7 games with 3+ touchdowns, including 6 against Navy. But he had 7 interceptions in his last 5 games, including 2 apiece in 3 of his final 4 games. So really the back half of the season, kind of really want to forget that. Nick Rolovich has to be hoping that we're going to be seeing the first half of the season. We want to see that Cole McDonald, and really, can he cut down on the mistakes? If he can do that, then Hawaii is going to have a chance here against Arizona. Now, we look at the matchups. Arizona's offense against Hawaii's defense. Hawaii running a 4-2-5 defense there under Corey Batoon, the defensive coordinator. And, for Arizona, J.J. Taylor is the guy that you really have to talk about. He's only 5'6". I mean, just a little guy. 5'6", 184 pounds, hides behind those offensive tackles. He's a junior, so he still has the option to potentially come back for his senior season. And, that's going to be a big question mark, if he has a big season. But the little guy, just getting it done. Over 1,400 yards on the ground a season ago, on 255 carries, 6 touchdowns, also caught 16 passes out of the backfield. The season before that as a redshirt freshman, 146 carries, 847 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He has 30 receptions in his career with the Wildcats, but his thing is going to be running to daylight. The vision, his ability to run between the tackles and bounce it to the outside. Again, he hides behind those offensive linemen. Reminds me a lot of Quentin Griffin out of Oklahoma. Ultimately played for the Denver Broncos for a few years. J.J. Taylor using that size to his advantage, or lack thereof, I should say, playing against some rather large offensive linemen there for Arizona. That ground game, I think, Donovan Lai, I think I'm pronouncing that right, 6'4", 315-pound sophomore, was a starter as a freshman last year at left tackle. He and the senior guard, Cody Creason, 6'4", 295 pounds. Those are really going to be the guys that I think you're going to see him run behind most often. Creason is on the right side, and Donovan Lai is Laie, possibly, on the left side. Those are going to be the vets that he's really going to be wanting to key in and run behind. So it's going to be an interesting group there up front for Arizona. It's a Noel Mazzoni offense, so you know that the offensive linemen are going to come in and do a pretty good job blocking for J.J. Taylor, some of that zone blocking scheme. So that Hawaii defense, this is a team that's going to have to replace Jelani Tavai, the second-round pick of Detroit. Now, he went down to injury in October, and I think that was one of the things when you looked at the linebackers, some guys really stepped up. Solomon Matautia Solomon, he's a 6'1", 230-pound senior. Matawatia, 92 tackles a season ago, and then Panay Pavihai, 87 tackles a season ago. But Kanai Pakonko, Paul Scott, Cheyenne Sanatoa, all got some experience behind Tavai when he went out to injury. So those linebackers, I think that's really going to be the strength of this defense. Blessman Ta'ala, the big 6'1", 310-pound nose tackle, the sophomore delayed enrolling at Hawaii, battling a knee injury, but really did well there at the nose tackle position. And then Samuela Akateu, a 6'2", 280-pound defensive tackle. He's another guy that's going to be fun to watch. And then Kaimana Padello, 6 foot, 220-pound defensive end. A guy who's kind of undersized a little bit, but a guy who can definitely make plays coming off the edge. If I can find, let's see, 13 and a half tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks to lead the team. I was just talking about Ta'ala, 32 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss at the nose tackle position. Akoteu, 5.5 tackles for loss and 3 sacks. So these guys are known for putting pressure on the quarterback, getting penetration into the backfield. I talked about Panay Pavihi, 6.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a couple of pass breakups, and a couple of fumble recoveries. And then Matautia, 4.5 tackles for loss, a sack, 4 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles. Matautia and Padello are going to really be those names to watch out for. Rushing the passer, really putting some pressure there on Khalil Tate, and then also filling in the gaps against the run. So that's kind of what you're going to see there, really in the running game. I talked a little bit about getting after the quarterback as well. Now on the outside, there's no more Sean Poindexter, the leading receiver from a season ago. Poindexter is gone. 42 receptions, 759 yards, 11 touchdowns. Now Sean Brown, the actual leader in receptions, was 64 receptions. He's also gone. So you're replacing a lot of experience there at the receiver position. Tony Ellison also gone. But the leading receiver coming back is Cedric Peterson, just 18 receptions a season ago, 268 yards, 4 touchdowns. But they're getting a freshman coming in, Boobie Curry, and in 17 games in high school in Houston, 153 receptions, just under 2,000 yards receiving and 21 touchdowns, 6'2", 206 pounds, going to be a weapon there on the outside. That's one of the things that you can say about Kevin Sumlin. He likes those big receivers, and so he's going to be yet another threat there on the outside. And then at the tight end position, Bryce Wolma. He's just 5 receptions a season ago, 6'3", 245 pounds. He's a guy who I think could be an H-back at the next level potentially. At the tight end position as well. I want to see what he can do, how he can develop here in his junior season. Can we see him as a player at the next level? That's really what I'm going to be looking for. But those receivers going to be going up against the secondary. The likes of Regesterman Ferris for Hawaii. That's going to be the best cornerback coming back. 11 pass breakups a season ago. He's 6'1", 180 pounds, has good size, good length, does a good job attacking the football in the air. He's going to be joined by Eugene Ford, the nickel back. He's moving from corner to nickel, 6'2", 195-pound junior. Had an interception, 3 pass breakups a season ago. So he's somebody who can make some plays on the football. And then the safety position, they've got a couple of safeties, Ikem Okiki, 87 tackles to go along with 3 pass breakups. He's a guy that can play a little bit in the box as well. He's a free safety, but isn't afraid to come up and hit some people. And then the 5th leading tackler, the strong safety, is Kalen Hicks, 76 tackles on the year, 4 tackles for loss, a sack, and 3 pass breakups, 6 foot, 200 pounds. these are going to be the guys that are playing on the back end. Ferris going up against Peterson and Curry. It's going to be interesting. If Khalil Tate is healthy, he's going to present some unique challenges there. But I think Hawaii, this defense, I think it's a little underrated. You've got some guys on this defense who I think, in that 4-2-5 scheme, it's going to be a unique defense that they're going to be throwing there in Mountain West. I think it's set up and designed well for the Mountain West, and I think those will be a good test for this defense. Now, I mentioned Cole McDonald there playing quarterback for the Warriors. Running back, you're going to have Fred Holly, 6 foot, 200-pound junior, and then the converted linebacker, Dayton Ferruta. 27 of his carries went for first down. Now, Dayton Ferruta, 93 carries, 459 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 10 receptions a season ago. Now, Fred Holly was the second leading rusher in terms of attempts behind Cole McDonald. In yardage, he was number 1, just by 9 yards over Ferruta. 4 touchdowns as well, 8 receptions to his credit. So they're going to have some guys who can run the football. I think Fred Holly's going to have more of the elusiveness. Well, Ferruta's just going to look to run you over more than not. I think Ferruta's a guy who actually has a chance to be a fullback at the next level. 5'11", 250 pounds, fullback, H-back, a guy who just wants to hit some people. That's going to be fun to watch. That'll be a fun match of watching him run into Colin Schooler over and over and over again. Colin Schooler, look, 6 foot, 236 pounds. This inside linebacker, he's one of the guys that I left out initially when I was looking at my linebackers. I honestly have no idea why. I missed out on Colin Schooler the first time around. Had to bring him up a little bit later. But, Schooler, 119 tackles a season ago, 21.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, this guy literally made plays all over the field. As a freshman in 2017, 96 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions. So, yeah, this guy has 4 interceptions in his career, 5 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, to go along with 215 tackles, 35 of which went for loss, and 7.5 sacks. This guy is fun to watch. Now, look, his brother, Brendan, is a receiver there at Oregon, but Colin Schooler is a guy, man, he's a junior, and he's a linebacker nobody's really talking about, but a guy who I think could potentially enter the draft and get drafted higher than people are expecting. I think he could be a day 2 pick. I'll calm down here just a little bit. But Tony Fields, the second leading tackler, also at the linebacker position, 89 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 6'1", 230-pound junior. That's really where you're going to see the strength in this defense, is at that linebacker position. Jalen Harris playing the stud position, 6'4", 242-pound sophomore. Had 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss a season ago. So he's someone who I think is going to continue they're going to look to put pressure on the quarterback. A guy who I think has one of the best names in all of college football, in Finton Connolly. Just 13 tackles a season ago, 2.5 tackles for loss, and got a sack. 6'5", 305 pounds, big defensive tackle. And then J.B. Brown, 6'3", 258-pound junior. Another guy who was a reserve a season ago. Didn't see a ton of action, because this is a team that's going to have to replace the likes of PJ Brown up front. But I will really be interested to see. Derek Bowles was another guy. But it's going to be interesting to see what Arizona can do against the run. This was a team that, when you look at it, against the run, 162.5 yards given up per game, 4.2 average yards on the ground. So it'll be interesting. I'll be curious to see exactly what they can do defensively there for Kevin Sumlin. Let's see if I just bear with me one moment as I'm pulling through my stats here. Marcel Yates is the defensive coordinator. That defense ranked 92nd nationally in total defense a season ago. But again, Colin Schooler is going to be the guy. Tony Fields is also going to be a big playmaker there. You really want to see what they can do against the run. Now, here's something that I really am going to be excited to see: Cole McDonald throwing the football to Cedric Byrd and JoJo Ward, a couple of 5'9", 170-pound receivers. Guys who are going to be slot receivers at the next level. But guys who can definitely make plays on the outside. Now, receiver-wise, when you're talking about Hawaii, you always had to remind yourself that they had John Ursua, 89 receptions a season ago, over 1,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, was drafted in the league. But Cedric Byrd, 79 catches, 970 yards, 9 touchdowns, really in his first season there for Hawaii. And it's because he was a JUCO transfer, came over from I believe it was Long Beach City College, and a guy who really came on, as a weapon there, really complimented John Ursua well. Ursua, really precision route runner. And Cedric Byrd, a guy who was more of that explosive playmaker. JoJo Ward, another guy who can attack defenses both outside the numbers and coming across the middle. He added 51 catches, 865 yards. That's 17 yards per reception, which, if I'm not mistaken, is tops on the team, and it is. So tops on the team. And racked up 9 touchdowns as well. Look, this is a team that's going to score some points, but that production in the passing game between Ursua, Byrd, and Ward a season ago, you had 34 touchdowns, which that's something that, okay, that's great that you had the 34 scores between 3 players, but that just leaves, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9 receptions, receiving touchdowns by the rest of the offense. That's something you need to spread the ball around a little bit more. Guys like Jason Matthew Sharsh should be seeing more passes thrown his way. When you take a guy like John Ursua out, who meant so much to the offense, guys like Cedric Byrd and JoJo Ward have to step up. They're going to be battling the likes of Lorenzo Burns. I thought last year as a sophomore, Burns had a pretty solid season overall. Burns 11 pass breakups to his credit, and 5'10", 181-pound junior, not the biggest guy in the world, but really a heady playmaker. Jace Whitaker is coming back from injury, so just like Marco Wilson, Jace Whitaker having to battle through an injury that really put him out all but one game a season ago. And someone who in 2017 had 3 interceptions, to go along with 13 pass breakups, has 28 total pass breakups in his career. A guy who I think before that injury was a guy who was tracking to be a potential had potential to be drafted in the draft. You had a guy like Dane Cruikshank playing safety there. And this is a guy who I think, is even better than that. I think Jace Whitaker is a guy I really want to see what he can do against these speed burners, these undersized guys. Is he going to have that discipline? And what's he going to look like coming off of that knee injury? Tristan Cooper at safety, 6'1", 195 pounds. The senior, he's going to provide some veteran leadership on the back end of the defense. Had 6 pass breakups to go with 36 tackles on the year. He was the 7th leading tackler a season ago. And then Scotty Young, just a junior, 5'11", 200 pounds. This is a guy who led the team with 3 interceptions, had another 3 pass breakups as well, playing the free safety position. These are going to be the guys on the back end of that defense. And I mentioned that front 7. They're going to be going up against, a line that, basically you have Ilm Manning and Solo Vaipulu. And Vaipulu and Manning, both guys who are under 300 pounds, but they, as true freshmen a season ago, over 900 snaps a piece. And then the big guys, are really on the interior of that line, really led by their center, who's a big boy, I might add. The center position is Cole Laveau, 6'6", 340 pounds. And then J.R. Hensley, the left guard, 6'5", 310 pounds. Both of those guys are seniors. So you're going to have those guys there on the interior to go along with Solo Vaipulu there at right guard. Il Manning is a guy at left tackle who really showed, towards the end of the season, a guy who is primed for a breakout year there in the Mountain West Conference. They're going to be having to look to try to shut down the likes of Jalen Harris and finding ways to slow down Colin Schooler and Tony Fields, who are going to be shooting gaps trying to get into the backfield. So I think at the end of the day with this, Arizona, Khalil Tate, if Khalil Tate is healthy, Hawaii is going to have a hard time dealing with that speed. But that said, I think Hawaii is a team that shouldn't be overlooked in the Mountain West Conference. I think they're going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I was just looking at Lindy Sports. I actually have their magazine here in front of me, and they have them ranked as the 86th ranked team, and they have them fourth in the West Division. Have them behind Fresno State, San Diego State, Nevada. So I think that's a fair assessment in terms of where they are in the West Division. But I think they're a much better team in the national rankings than again that people are giving them credit for. So I think Arizona gets the win there. I think Florida ends up edging out Miami. But again, close matchups. And I think those games can swing either way depending on what those matchups look like. So hopefully that gets you prepared for this first week of action. Some guys that you really want to start watching out for who are going to be factors come 2020 in the draft. So I mentioned before that I wanted to take a look at matchups and such, but I think what I really want to do is I haven't gotten a chance to really spend time talking about small school prospects, FCS guys, and just happened to notice that the Senior Bowl sent out their list of the watch list for the Senior Bowl. That's something that I always am looking forward to every year. Jim Nagy released it, and it does have some FCS prospects on there, guys that played in Division II as well. And so I wanted to break them down a little bit, take a look at what these guys are. So as you see these names popping up, you'll kind of know when to tune in. Who are some of these teams that and some of these guys that I need to key in on at some of these smaller schools. So if we start with the quarterback position, Tom Flacco, 6'1", 208 pounds, out of Towson. In 2015 and 2016 was at Western Michigan. Went to Rutgers in 2017, graduated, and then ended up transferring there to Towson. Was a Walter Payton finalist in 2018, finished 5th place overall, CAA first team, and was the league's Offensive Player of the Year, 3rd in FCS in total offense, 5th in passing yards, and 6th in passing touchdowns. 61% passer, over 3,200 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Need to cut down on those touchdowns. 35 sacks, got sacked quite a bit, so that's another thing that you have to worry about a little bit there. But I think where he really excels, 742 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. So you're going to see a really good athlete, kind of an undersized quarterback, but a guy who can make plays outside the pocket. Jacob Knipp out of Northern Colorado, 6'4", 218 pounds. Now look, this guy, 3 straight years with shoulder injuries in 2016, 17, and 18. In 2016, was injured in the second game, played in 4.5 games in 2017, and then 2018, just 3 games before he went out with an injury. Now in 2015, as a freshman, started in week 4 and ultimately set freshman records for completions, yards, and touchdowns. 3.4 GPA, really a smart kid, 6'4", 218 pounds, as I mentioned previously. He's just a guy, can't stay healthy. He's going to have a big year, and I think the medicals with that shoulder, that's really going to be a huge concern. Jake Meyer out of UC Davis, 6 foot, 200 pounds. Dan Hawkins really has that offense flying. Meyer came in, Jake Mayer. And let's see, in 2016 was at Long Beach City College. In 2017 was a Big Sky Newcomer of the Year, 2nd team All-Conference. Then in 2018, really a breakout season. The Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year, 1st team All Big Sky against Sac State. Went 37 to 46 for 478 yards. It was 0 interceptions. And against San Jose State, their 3rd win in program history. The Aggies beating the San Jose State Spartans 44-38. He threw for 446 yards and 3 touchdowns to beat him. Let's see, a season ago, 65.4% completion percentage, just over 3,900 yards, 34 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Also ended up with 10 interceptions the previous year. Needs to cut down on some of the mistakes. But when you're throwing the ball 557 times, I think after a while, at 65%, completion percentage, that's really the thing. Dan Hawkins likes to spread the ball around. Really, he was throwing to Keelan Doss. No more Keelan Doss. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Building rapport with those receivers that are coming back. Took UC Davis to their first playoff there in the FCS as well. Nick Tiano out of UC Chattanooga, Tennessee Chattanooga, 6'5", 240 pounds. This is a kid, went to Mississippi State in 2016, played in 5 games. In 2017, missed the last 6 games with an injury after transferring to Chattanooga. 2018 was 16th in the FCS in completions per game against South Carolina, 17-36 for 254 yards, 61% completion percentage, over 2,700 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Also ran for 239 yards and a touchdown. But Tennessee Chattanooga gets the Volunteers and James Madison back-to-back weeks on September 14th and the 21st. If Nick Tiano really wants to take the next step, make a statement as a guy to watch for the draft, he's going to have big games against some big-time opponents. Northern Arizona's Case Cookus is 6'4", 205 pounds. When you look at his numbers, really wasn't the full-time starter until 2017. 58% passer, over 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Played in just 2 games last year due to injury. So another guy. Let's see what he can do in 2019. Can he rebound? That's going to be the biggest question. And then finally at the quarterback position, there's Brady Davis out of Illinois State, 6'4", 210 pounds, left knee injury in 2016. 2017 played in just 1 game for Memphis, and then transferred to Illinois State, was the Missouri Valley Football Conference, made the all newcomer team, second in the voting overall. Just 55% completion percentage, 1,944 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. He'll be a guy to watch there as well. When you look at the running backs, if we want to switch gears, and I think we do, Shane Simpson out of Towson. So we've already talked about the quarterback. Now you got a running back to go with it. 5'9", 200 pounds, was the first team All-American a season ago. The CAA Special Teams Player of the Year as well. This is a guy, let's see, just 711 yards on the ground a season ago to go along with 6 touchdowns, with 39 receptions, another 5 touchdowns there. And then in the return game, has 2 kick returns for touchdown under his belt. A guy who's a very versatile athlete, smaller guy on the small side, but put together pretty solidly. As is James Robinson, 5'10", 220 pounds out of Illinois State. Remember, we talked about the quarterback as well. We got a running back, Walter Payton finalist, FCS All-American, first team All-Missouri Valley Conference, led the conference in rushing, was 6th on the Illinois State rushing list, 2 games with 200-plus yards, 6 games with 100-plus yards. In 2017 was a second team All-Conference selection. In 2018, over 1,200 yards. 12 touchdowns to go along with 12 receptions for 164 yards, just under 1,000 yards in 2017, 933 yards on the ground, 12 touchdowns there, over 2,500 yards on the ground, 26 touchdowns to go along with 42 receptions. He's someone powerfully built as well, and a guy who I think is going to be fun to watch. But I think the guy, if you're looking for a running back who could potentially make that leap to the next level, is AJ Hines out of Duquesne. 5'11", 225 pounds, was a Walter Payton Award finalist, first team FCS All-American, the NEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All-NEC as well, 7 games with 100 yards rushing, including 6 in a row, was 3rd in the FCS in rushing with 1,520 yards, 15 touchdowns as well, has 42 receptions in his career, over 3,800 yards and 38 touchdowns. So this is a guy, has really just produced every time, every time he sets foot out on the field. 3 straight seasons with over 1,000 yards rushing. he's the guy to watch. Just a big, powerfully built back, pretty good hands as well, and a guy I'm looking forward to seeing play. I want to get my hands on some Duquesne tape. I'll be watching some ESPN Plus games for sure to get my eye on him. Now at the wide receiver position, we've got some pretty good receivers. I actually got to watch Elijah Bell for North Carolina A&T in the Celebration Bowl. Thought he had a really good game there. He's 6'1", 225 pounds, needs just 26 receptions to become the team's all-time leading receiver, and also 173 yards to also be the all-time leader for yards. Shares the TD record already with 25. Was the second team all MEAC in 2016 and 2018, and the first team in 2017. 147 receptions, over 2,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. To his credit, including 11 in 2017. Big-bodied, physical, a guy who I think is pretty athletic and can be a weapon outside the numbers. Michael Bandy from the University of San Diego, 5'10", 190 pounds, consensus All-American 2018, fifth most yards in FCS history, totaling 698 yards, receiving and 14 touchdowns. After just 5 starts as a sophomore. Just someone who just knows how to get open, has a knack for finding voids in the defense. The guy who was a threat to go all the way. Doesn't always look like the fastest guy, and yet he's still making these plays. Over 19 yards per reception a season ago, 18.3 for his career. Definitely a guy who is exciting, exciting playmaker. I think he'll be a weapon potentially in the slot at the next level. Jaquez Izard, was a 5'9", 190 pounder out of Howard, over 1,000 yards receiving a season ago on just 40 receptions, 12 touchdowns, 26.6 yards per reception. You want to talk about a game breaker with game breaking speed? This is a guy that's got it. As a sophomore, 34 receptions, 895 yards. That's 26.3 yards per reception, 6 touchdowns there. So definitely a vertical home run hitter, undersized, but definitely a weapon who has that speed to run by defenders. Jim Nagy also has Jonathan Giles out of Texas Southern now. 6'1", 200. The name may sound familiar. He started his career at Texas Tech, over 1,000 yards in 2016, 69 receptions, 13 touchdowns, and was really one of that team's go-to targets down the field. In 2017, went to LSU, transferred. 2018, just played in 8 games. Just saw 10 passes thrown his way. Really underutilized, but that was a team that was just so loaded at the receiver position. A lot of guys, couldn't really spread the ball around. Moving to Texas Southern, he's from Missouri City, Texas. This is really going to be him coming home as a graduate transfer. And then finally at the receiver position, how about Josh Pearson out of Jacksonville State? 6'4", 205 pounds. The redshirt junior in 2018, first team All-American. 67 receptions, over 1,100 yards. That's 16.8 yards per reception, 17 touchdowns, had a long of 75 yards. Big play weapon, long, does a really good job along the sidelines, could be a weapon in the red zone as well. Big play guy. So those are the receivers. Tight ends. Dayton, not every day that you talk about Dayton, you think about their basketball team, but the Flyers also have a pretty good tight end there in Adam Troutman, 6'6", 253 yards, 29 starts to his name, led the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns a season ago, 41 catches, 604 yards, 9 touchdowns, has 108 receptions, just under 1,400 yards receiving and 17 touchdowns in his career. Nigel Kilby is a big dude, 6'8", 243 pounds out of Southern Illinois. Played at Eastern Michigan in 2016, 34 catches, 437 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Ultimately transferred to Southern Illinois. Played in 9 games. Well, first he went to Garden City Community College, then went to Southern Illinois. 9 games, 2 starts, missed 2 games due to injury. but still had 16 catches for 230 yards and 6 touchdowns. Just a big dude there at the tight end position. When you think of big guys, a season ago at Stetson, Donald Parham was the third leading receiver in the FCS. Got a look in the league before ultimately getting cut. Nigel Kilby there, Southern Illinois. They've got a couple of players there that we'll be talking about. So, Kilby's going to be one of those guys to watch. And then Bradley Moore out of Northern Iowa, 6'3", 242 pounds. First team all Missouri Valley Conference after putting up 39 catches, 536 yards, 4 touchdowns. So he's going to be a weapon there. And then finally, Eric Henneman out of Lindenwood, a Division II first-team All-American, 6'3", 236 pounds, 57 receptions, 639 yards, and 9 touchdowns on the year. So he's going to be somebody to watch as well there on the Division II side. Got just 2 more positions to cover. Offensive tackle, you got Adam Solomon out of Illinois State, 6'6", 320 pounds, a transfer from Illinois, played in 24 games, mostly on special teams for the Fighting Illini. And then at the center position, here's a guy that's really interesting, Kyle Murphy, 6'4", 302 pounds from Rhode Island, first team all-conference a season ago for the Rams, 25 starts in his career. Now check this out, 10 starts at left tackle, 9 at left guard, 5 at right tackle, and 1 at the center position, which is really the position that he's going to be playing here in 2019. He's somebody who has to be on NFL radars, if nothing else, because of the versatility, and he's a pretty darn good player as well. So those are the FCS and small school prospects, to keep an eye out for, really because Jim Nagy said so. When you take a look at the Senior Bowl watch list. Now, if you switch to the defensive side of the ball, Bryce Stirk out of Montana State, 6'5", 260 pounds, spent time there at Washington with the Huskies 2015 to 2017, and then in 2018 played the buck position. When you look at his stats, 61 total tackles, 17 behind the line of scrimmage, 8.5 sacks, moving to defensive end this year. Going to be a guy, I think he has the size to play the defensive end position, and I'm going to be curious to see what he can do coming off the edge there from Montana State. Jonah Williams out of Weber State, not a guy that people really talk about, because when you hear Jonah Williams, you think of the Alabama offensive tackle that was taken by the Bengals in the 2019 draft. That'd be a good trivia question. How many times have you had a guy by the same name drafted in consecutive drafts? That'd be interesting. I'm kind of pulling for Jonah Williams to get that done, just so that we can find out what the answer to that trivia question might be. In 2018, first team All-Sky, 13 starts to his credit. When you talk about starts, this is a guy who has 37 total under his belt. He was a freshman All-American in 2016. A guy with, let's see, he 132 tackles to his credit, 17 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks in his career. A guy who has been pretty consistent, making plays behind the line of scrimmage, and a guy who just hadn't really hauled in any let me make sure I'm looking at this right. Yeah. So pretty consistent, making plays behind the line of scrimmage. Didn't end up with any sacks last season in 13 games, but a guy who, again, is going to be a weapon there for Weber State. How about Mekhi Brown, the 6'5", 250-pounder out of Tennessee State, 2018. Let's see. Had 5 sacks to go along with 38 tackles. But in 2018, 67 tackles, 7 sacks to his credit. Has 3 total pass breakups. A pretty good athlete coming off the edge. I'm sorry, I was looking at the next guy's numbers. His numbers: 26 tackles, 4 sacks, which was tied for the lead, 6.5 tackles for loss of pass breakup, and a forced fumble in 2018. If you remember Mekhi Brown, he was the guy that got into the scuffle there in the national championship game between Alabama and Georgia on the sideline. Ultimately, ended up transferring to Tennessee State. Now, I was mentioning those other numbers, the 7 sacks in 2018 and 5 sacks in 2018. That was Nasir Player, 6'5", 241, East Tennessee State, second team All-American a season ago, Buck Buchanan finalist, had 11 quarterback hurries as well. A guy who was a SoCon all-freshman team in 2016, had 7 starts there, another 11 starts in 2017. Pretty good athlete coming off the edge. If we switch to the inside linebackers, this is where you're going to see some interesting players. Griffith, out of Indiana State, 6'4", 250 pounds, an All-American, first-team All-Conference, led the conference in tackles with 132 back-to-back, 100 tackle seasons, 21 and a half tackles for loss in his career, 10 sacks to his credit as well, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, a guy who does just really a good job flying around to the football. 32 games under his belt, 276 total tackles, just had 37 in his freshman season, but has a chance to have 3 straight seasons with over 100 tackles there for the Sycamores. Now, Zach Hall, Southeast Missouri. Remember this name, 6 foot, 238 pounds. In 2017, second team all conference. Had 79 tackles, did make some plays behind the line, 15 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. Really a guy that made a living going after the quarterback. There, 3 forced fumbles to his credit as well. Then all of a sudden he blows up in 2018. Was the Buck Buchanan Award winner, which is the Defensive Player of the Year for the FCS, and the Athletic Directors Association. Defensive Player of the Year was also the Ohio Valley Conference Defensive Player of the Year, an All-American, first team All Ohio Valley Conference, setting a school record 168 tackles, including 67 solo, 12 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 interceptions. Four interceptions and 6 pass breakups, 4 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. This is just someone, and has blocked 2 kicks in his career as well. But Zach Hall, a guy who you really want to see, can he match that production from a season ago? Another 120 tackles. He's going to hit that milestone of 400 tackles in his career, and I think that's definitely within reach if he has another season like he did in 2018. Dante Olson out of Montana, mentioned him in last week's podcast, 6'3", 237 pounds. Why do we mention him? Well, it was because of the 151 tackles that he had in 2018. Buck Buchanan finalist, All-American, first team All-Conference as well. Guy 15 and a half tackles for loss, 8 sacks in his career, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles. A guy who just is instinctive and a playmaker. Both Dante Olson and Zach Hall, I think, are guys that should be on NFL radars, as is Christian Roseboom out of South Dakota State at 6'2", 230 pounds. This guy has been an All-American all 3 seasons there for the Jackrabbits. Was a freshman All-American in 2016. When you look at his stats, 3 straight seasons with over 100 tackles, including 132 as a freshman. When you have 105 tackles in 2018, and that's your low output, you must be doing something right. That's pretty impressive. 10 and a half tackles for loss a season ago, 23 total in his career, 12 pass breakups, 5 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, has blocked the kick as well, knows what to do when he gets to the ball. Just 4 sacks, so not really much of a sack artist, but 6 interceptions in his career, 2 in each of his seasons, one of which was returned for a touchdown. That was his freshman season. Just a guy who just knows how to make plays. And someone who's really, you're going to want to key in on and watch. South Dakota State, they get to play some of the big boys, and they really are one of those teams that consistently year in, year out, in the playoff. So Christian Roseboom, definitely someone that you're going to want to watch there in 2019. let's see. Switching gears to the back half of the defense and really at the cornerback position, Manny Patterson out of Maine. Maine, yeah, they've got a pretty solid defense. And 5'10", 180 pounds. In 2018, first team All CAA, 14 starts, 22 pass breakups, which was third in the FCS, to go along with an interception. A guy who, that interception there in 2018 was his first of his career, but 42 pass breakups. That's something that he has the ball skills. The guy who knows what to do when he arrives at the football. You just would like to see him really take things and elevate things to the next level and really start picking off some passes there. Of course, quarterbacks are going to shy away from him just a little bit. Then how about Rashad Robinson out of James Madison? I would have loved to have seen what Jimmy Moreland and Rashad Robinson could have done for James Madison had Rashad Robinson not torn his knee in 2018. Got the medical hardship, though, is back for one more season, 5'11", 188 pounds. In 2017, played in 15 games, 8 starts, first team All-American. And in 2017, had 51 tackles at the cornerback position, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, but 7 interceptions and 16 pass breakups. I think that's really something that jumps out. A guy who just knows how to make plays, does a really good job reading the quarterback's eyes, very quick, no wasted movement. I just want to see what he can do, rebounding from that knee injury. Going to have to make sure that those medicals check out as well if he wants to get drafted in the middle of day 2. Safety positions, I mentioned there was going to be another Southern Illinois Saluki, and we'd have one here in Jeremy Chin, 6'3", 212 pounds, first team All Missouri Valley Football Conference. This guy's a smart kid too, 3.58 GPA. But when you look at the stats, 172 tackles in his career, 2.5 tackles for loss, 9 interceptions, 3 interceptions in each of his seasons there at Southern Illinois, and then 24 pass breakups and 6 forced fumbles. A guy who just knows what to do when he gets to the football. Was a freshman All-American 2016, and like I said, first team All Mountain. Missouri Valley Football Conference selection. Blocked a kick as well in 2018. 3.58 GPA. Smart kid. He's somebody to watch there at the safety position. As is Marlon Bridges out of Jacksonville State. 6 foot, 200 pounds. First team All-American, first team All Ohio Valley Conference, was a first team All-American in 2017. 2016 was a freshman All-American. A guy who, when you look at the numbers, let's see, why do my numbers not look right? So he's got 19 pass breakups in his career, and eight interceptions. A guy who has pretty good instincts there on the back end for Jacksonville State. Illinois State's Luther Kirk, 6'2", 215 pounds, another big kid. Wasn't a part of the team in 2017, but 2018 first team All-Conference selection, 61 tackles to go along with 5 interceptions, 8 pass breakups. Someone who I really want to see build upon that season there in 2018 if he's going to want to get scouts interested in his play, especially not being a part of the team in 2017. A lot of question marks. You're going to have to kind of take a look at things there. How about Bobby Price out of Norfolk State? 6'4", 205. Big kid. You worry about the stiffness in his hips. Has picked off 6 passes, 21 pass breakups, including 10 a season ago. Was a third-team All-Conference selection, last year, and has, let's see, 25 starts to his name. Has played both free and both safety positions, both free and strong. And a guy from Norfolk State, if you get a chance to watch, tune in and watch him. He's got the long dreads, so he'll be a fun guy to watch out there. It won't be hard to find him. Josh Sandry, 6'1", 210 out of Montana. Second leading returning tackler to Dante Olson from 2017. 61 tackles, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups. Has 13 pass breakups total in his career. 140 tackles, a couple of sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. And then Kyle Duggar out of Lenoir-Rhyne, 6'2", 200 pounds. Another guy, 163 tackles in his career, 5.5 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions and 20 pass breakups, 4 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries as well. A guy who just knows what to do when he arrives at the football. That's what you're looking for on the back end of your defense, guys who can be difference makers, and I think Kyle Duggar can definitely do that. So those are our FCS and small school prospects to keep an eye out for here in 2019. They're on the Senior Bowl watch list. I'm sure that they're going to be adjusting that, adding some guys to it, and I'll be trying to key in on some of the FCS games as well as much as I can. So if you take a look at the schedule after Miami and Florida and Arizona and Hawaii, next week's podcast, we'll break down those matchups. We'll really take a look at it and really talk about what to expect the full week, August 29th there on Thursday, just to take a quick look at teams that you'll be looking at and looking for. Let's see, UCF with Brandon Wimbush at quarterback taking on Florida A&M. You'll get to see Clemson take on Georgia Tech. Let's see, Texas A&M and Texas State. Texas State has as Brian London at linebacker, a guy who I really enjoy watching play. South Dakota State, you get to see Christian Roseboom take on Minnesota, on Fox Sports 1. Let's see, ASU taking on Kent State. Northern Colorado, I mentioned them earlier. If you're scoring at home, that was with Jacob Knipp at the quarterback. They're taking on San Jose State. And then obviously in the nightcap, you'll have Utah, the number 14 ranked Utes, taking on BYU in Provo. Friday, August 30th, you're going to have Michigan State taking on Tulsa. Wisconsin, number 19 Wisconsin, going to Raymond James Stadium to take on USF. That's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. Wake Forest against Utah State. Now, Wake Forest, an ACC program, going up against Jordan Love and company. That's going to be a fun one. I'm going to make sure to tune into that one. Colorado State, you got that rivalry. Purdue's traveling to Reno to take on Nevada. And then we hit Saturday, August 31st. Ohio State taking on Lane Kiffin and Florida Atlantic. Iowa State taking on Northern Iowa. Let's see, Howard. I mentioned Howard a little bit there with Jaquez Izard, the speedster. They're taking on Maryland on the Big Ten Network, so you get to see him play. Memphis against Mississippi. That'll be a fun one, as will let's see, West Virginia and James Madison. It doesn't look like it's televised. It's going to be at Milan Puskar Stadium there in Morgantown. But that's interesting. I wonder if they're going to pick that game up anywhere. Alabama taking on Duke at home. No, it's actually going to be played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have here? What other games can we key in on? Teams to watch out for. Stanford's taking on Northwestern. Stanford's ranked number 25 in the country. KJ Costello playing the Wildcats and Patty Fisher at home. Let's see, Montana State. Mentioned them a little bit here. They're taking on Texas Tech, the start of the Matt Wells era. Syracuse taking on Liberty and Hugh Freeze. You'll have Buckshot Calvert throwing the ball to Antonio Gandy Golden. Syracuse with Kendall Coleman and McKinley Williams and Alton Robinson there along the front four. That's a formidable group. UC Davis, mentioned Jake Mayer taking on Cal. Let's see, Illinois State, mentioned quite a few of their players. They'll be taking on Northern Illinois, so you'll be able to see what they can do against an FBS program. Georgia, number 3, Georgia taking on Vanderbilt, traveling to Vanderbilt Stadium there in Nashville, Tennessee. LSU taking on Georgia Southern. Oregon and Auburn, that's going to be the marquee matchup. The 11th ranked Ducks taking on the 16th ranked Tigers in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. That's going to be a fun one. Missouri going to Wyoming. Get to see Kelly Bryant play. That'll be an interesting game to tune into. Virginia, you'll get to see Bryce Love take on Pitt. Texas is playing Louisiana Tech at home. Weber State, Jonah Williams, he'll get to take on San Diego State. traveling to San Diego to take that, that matchup. And then USC and Fresno State in the final game of the night, 7:30 Pacific there at the Coliseum. Last two games on the schedule beyond that. Houston taking on the number 4 ranked Oklahoma Sooners. That'll be played at Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts and company going on there, throwing the ball to CeeDee Lamb. Get to see what Alex Grinch's defense can do against the high-powered Houston offense. Dana Holgerson and company, De'Ara King there at quarterback. And then finally on Monday, September 2nd, number 9 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Ian Book at the helm of the on offense, defensively being led by the likes of Julian Okwara, Khalid Kareem, and Alohi Gilman. Traveling to Cardinal Stadium there in Louisville, Kentucky, taking on the Louisville Cardinal. So that'll be all the matchups. We're going to break those down a little bit further next week after we talk about Miami and Florida and Arizona and Hawaii. We'll break down what those matchups are going to look like, what to expect in some of those different matchups. What are the guys to really key in on? We'll break all of that down. So I think my job is done here. Hopefully you are ready to go, ready for the games here on Saturday, August 24th. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. College football is back. I can't stress that enough. It's, I can't contain my excitement. College football is back. Say it loud, say it proud, go outside, scream at the top of the rooftops. College football season is here to stay. I love it. Can't wait. And then, I'm looking forward to next week when we have a full slate of games. But we'll take it one game at a time. And we really have to cherish the college football season because next thing you know, it'll be gone in a blink of an eye. But I want to help you through the entire college football season, and bring you, into my world, into my madness, what I see when I watch games, how I'm taking my notes. I'll take you every step of the way through the entire process. So without further ado, it's time to sign off, time to say goodbye. Until next time, hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I've enjoyed bringing this to you for ReadyForTheDraft.com. This is the Ready for the Draft podcast. I am Gregg Schutze. I hope everyone has a great weekend, a great week. We will talk again next week. We'll get to start talking about football and some of the games that we've gotten to watch and start really talking about the matchups. So until then, everyone, again, have a great week. Take care, and I am out of here.